Good evening. This is the council meeting for the city of Reading, Ohio, September 1st, 2020. I'd like to open with a prayer and a pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen.
I'll get my flag here. Mel has his. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albright?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico?
Here.
We have minutes that are out there being reviewed, but none to go through this evening. I'd like to welcome two guest speakers to our meeting tonight. First is Kate Kresham, the branch manager for the Reading Public Library. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to her so she can announce her good news and what's happening down at the library.
Thanks, Chris. Again, my name is Kate Kresham. I am the manager of the Reading Library, and I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I just wanted to take a moment to update the community on how the library is currently operating and welcome everyone back to the building if they haven't been back to see us yet since we reopened. So currently the library is open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and customers are welcome to visit us for up to 1 hour per day. And you can use a computer, use our Wi-Fi on a personal device, browse for or check out material, read the newspaper, or have items copied, faxed, or printed. So we're currently operating at a reduced capacity. Right now, our capacity is 15 visitors in the building at a time. And because we do have that reduced capacity and because we recognize some people are really not comfortable coming in the building yet, we've ramped up our services that we're able to provide at our drive-up window. So if you come around the back of the library, there is a drive-up window. Some people don't know about it, but it's kind of our great secret of the library. So in the past, our drive-up's really been used for people to pick up their holds, but right now, the things that we're doing for people, we're sending faxes through the drive-up window, and that includes faxes to Hamilton County Job and Family Services. If a customer would like to email us a document, we can print that out and have that ready for them to pick up at the window. We can also make copies through the window as well. And there's a few timely matters that we want the community to know that we can help with. So customers are always welcome to visit the library to register to vote or to check the status of their voter registration and to determine their polling location. So at the library, you can come pick up any forms related to that, including forms to vote by mail, the vote by mail application, which can be picked up at the Reading branch or any other library location. Another thing I'd like to point out that it's almost time is almost up to complete the census. So if anyone in the community has not yet completed the census, you're welcome to stop by the Reading Library to do so. Once you're logged onto a computer, it only takes about 5 minutes. And the deadline for that is September 30th. The library staff would like to wish the Reading students and teachers a safe and happy return to school. We're monitoring the needs of the students this school year, and we're really looking at how we can help and assist, especially with virtual learning. So, you know, the school year did just start, so we're going to kind of keep an eye on things and see how we can adapt our services to help out. But if anyone would like to reach out to us with suggestions or ideas for that, we're happy to hear them. And if council or other members of the community have any questions or need any assistance, you can reach out to us by email at reading@cincinnatilibrary.org or by phone at 513-369-4465. And if anybody on council tonight has any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you. Thank you.
This is Mel Gertz. I would like to also comment that the Reading Library will be a polling location again this November 3rd, which we greatly appreciate. So our Ward 1 precincts 1A, 1B vote there. And we are set up for all social distancing in the meeting room, and there will be all sorts of equipment. The poll will be offering people masks as they come in to vote. Will be all the poll workers will have gloves, face shields, masks, dividers. So I mean, we're trying to keep it as safe and comfortable for people to come and vote in person as we can. And we will have people stationed at the door that are only letting in a certain number of people so that it doesn't get too full. So that's all going to be in place as well. So we appreciate you doing that. And from an absentee ballot perspective, we've already processed over 70,000 requests for absentee ballots, and it's just September 1st. So it's been extremely busy at the Board of Elections.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being a polling.
Yeah, we really enjoy that day. It's just a great day to see so many people from the community and people who don't necessarily come into the library regularly, so we can kind of tell them what we're all about and all of that. So it's always good to see people on election day.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I wanted to thank you for referring my request. This is Tony Gertz. I apologize to the public and everyone. I don't know if I did something to my computer. I don't have the camera working, but that's nevertheless, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me, but I appreciate you referring those requests. I have this down to the Central Library about streetscape possibilities and reviewing the crosswalk situation there too. I know that was probably, Ms. Kresham, was out of your bailiwick, but nevertheless, I appreciate your referral.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tony.
No other comments? Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. You can come anytime, just let me know. Looking for exciting things from the library always. I get down there quite often, so I'm glad to see it back open.
Thank you.
We have a second guest speaker tonight. I've asked Ms. Linda Fitzgerald to come to council and talk about a few of the things that are going on around the community, maybe some misunderstandings that can get straightened out, and any other good news that we've got. So Linda, you go right ahead and take the floor.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, council. Why don't we just sort of start with COVID, get that out of the way. One of the things that we did as we were anticipating changes perhaps in employment and investment because of COVID and how it affected our major companies is I worked with the women in the tax office and touched base with our top 15 employers. And then I put together a survey for them to basically saying that we would appreciate knowing what your plans are and what impact this has on you as much as you can determine, so that we too, as a city and a provider of services, residents and businesses, can start our planning. Now, I am happy to say that for the majority of those responses, which I shared with the tax office, everybody thought that they would remain stable. And in fact, a few of the biotech companies, because they had a role in producing masks or mechanical devices that would be used on respirators, they actually thought they would see some growth, and in fact, indicated they have. Our biggest hit that we took, and I can share this because it was shared with me for council and for tax office, was standard textile. And they had a permanent reduction of 27 people. And that represented a 1.58 million reduction in payroll, unfortunately. Now, I will say that the future for hospitality, because that's obviously where the reductions were. Depends on when the industry comes back. In terms of their health care, they stayed very strong. So, I think MCOR probably had some reductions, but, for the most part, our businesses were still doing well. We didn't forget about the small businesses. Let's just say I think I gained more than the COVID-10 because I kept eating at Reading restaurants, and finally got to the point where I just bought gift certificates and gave them away. But our restaurants, I got to give those folks credit. We put together a little campaign called Take Out to Step Up, Reading businesses, small businesses, and it had a map of all of the restaurants and encouraged our residents and businesses to patronize those businesses. So I still see them very frequently, have touch base with the Bridal District. The Bridal District had an initial hit, but as would be expected in the production end of it, you got a lot of people that are trying to get their weddings in, maybe at a reduced number of participants there, but they're all very busy right now. So I wanted to discuss that first of all, and we will continue to stay in touch with those companies. The other thing is maybe what we can do is I can just start on one end of town and discuss what's going on. And let's start on the south end of Reading Road. I believe that most of you know that I have been working with communities, adjoining communities, Amberley Village, Sycamore Township, the city of Cincinnati, and our leader of this initiative is Steve Johns from the Hamilton County Planning Division. And we've been meeting regularly now for several years. What we have done is developed what we're calling the Central County Commerce Park. And it includes the section of Reading from Alworth Road south to Sunnybrook, where we end, actually a little bit beyond that. And then it includes part of Cincinnati, although Amberley Village is not contiguous to it. They have the Gibson greeting card site that they're wanting to develop. So they're very active in it as well. And then if you look on the west side of Reading Road, which is in Sycamore Township, you have the old hotel motel developments there. So what we're basically seeing and recommending is a transition from the retail establishments that worked so well in the 1960s to a light industrial distribution use of the age of Amazon, let's say. So some of the things, the local governments have made this significant, they have a significant stake in the corridor. I talked about the former Gibson greeting card site. That's owned by the port and it's ready for development. And you probably are also aware that Sycamore Township owns the former Cross County Borrow Pit. Hopefully you all know what that is. A portion of the former Carousel Inn. There is a developer called Blue Tide who has purchased the other remaining hotel properties, and their intention, and again, this is in Sycamore Township, so it's under their jurisdiction. The intention of this developer is to keep the motels as housing, low-income housing. Sometimes they say housing for veterans. But the bottom line is this group is not in favor of this, and Sycamore Township is definitely not in favor of that. So what we've done is, we think it's only fair that if you're going to tell a property owner, I'll bet a new property owner who should have done some research before buying the property, that they can't use the property for that intended purpose. We have been trying to find developers or individuals, including the port, who might be interested in buying that property from Blue Tide and Sycamore Township. And in fact, we have a property in the very south end of our jurisdiction. It's the old Methodist Book Bindery. I don't know if you're familiar with that building, but I worked with an attorney from downtown, Joe Levine, and he purchased that property, has made improvements both interior and exterior. I mean, that sat vacant for years and years, and he intends to market it for light industrial. He is also starting to identify some other properties, both in the city of Reading and in Sycamore Township. Carla, I see you worried there. I got this all for you, okay? I see a look on Carla's face that I hope she's taking notes. I've got this all written down for you. So, you know, he's indicated, and he actually attended our last meeting at my invitation. And, you know, so I think that you will start to see some things going on there. We're also looking at public infrastructure in the corridor. And to make this Central County Commerce Park a reality, ODOT has shown a commitment to improve the corridor through infrastructure investments. And they're working with our group, local jurisdictions, to design and then build center turn lane for the corridor and to make upgrades to the pavement, sidewalks, and eventually the streetscape. Now, all of that will come, our engineer is aware of that, JMA, and all of that will come to council before any of it, you know, reaches fruition. In fact, the group is now inviting a representative from each of the respective elected groups to attend an initial meeting. And then hopefully after that, we'll have presentations, city council, or the board of trustees in Sycamore and so on, and also with the businesses in the corridor. So last thing on South Reading Road is I have been trying for some time to identify signage and property maintenance issues, and actually not just on South Reading Road, but all of Reading Road. And so I got Dan Brooks to come out with me last week, and I identified in person, you know, visually showing him just the worst culprits. I'm not talking about digging down deep and finding every little problem, but that will certainly, I think, make a difference as well. He actually told me if he could get an intern for 2 months, he'd have it all done. So I don't know. I think he talked to you guys about that. So hopefully something will happen there. Okay, so that's the south end, and then I was happy to hear about the library. That's good news. Let's talk a little bit about the US EPA grant. You remember we got $400,000 to do phase 1 and phase 2 studies on properties, and we have done that probably now on about 18 different sites. And some of these you're aware of. The dry cleaner, Vanover's dry cleaner is probably the best example I can give you. But we are reaching a point, we spent half of that money on the Dow site, and we're reaching a point where we're almost finished spending it, which is good because we're supposed to have it spent at the end of the year. And some of the places that we're working with now are McCluskey Chevrolet. After months and months and months of working on this, they finally agreed to purchase old, I think it was Allen Auto Repair Shop on Jefferson Avenue. There are 2 buildings there that are dilapidated and a real problem for the fire department and building department. So they are closing on that, and you know, that's about 9 months in the working, but we're happy. They did use some of our phase or our US EPA money to do their phase 2. I will bringing to you a summary of all the projects that we've done, and because I'm putting this together for US EPA, total number of jobs created, total new investment. Just suffice it to say that that program, that $400,000 went a long way to the community. Then let's see here, that's the US EPA grant. Oh, we're also finishing out the end of the property, or the end of the money will be used for Valley Termite Pest Control, Tammy Burkle's property on South Reading Road, and a couple of her properties on Benson Street. One of them used to also be a laundry. Couple things along Benson Street, and I like to mention this because I don't want you to think that we forget Benson Street. I mean, it seems like everything is going fine there, and in fact it is. We have a ribbon cutting this Saturday if any of you want to come at noon, and it's for a company that does women's wellness related to bridal niche. And so if you want to be there for that, it's called the Cookie Jar. Please come to the Cookie Jar on, get you the address. I don't know it off the top of my head, but we have a key to the city and we'll be presenting that. So the Bridal District is doing well. I think you all know I serve on that board as well as the Chamber of Commerce board. And two things I wanted to tell you about that. SOS building has been sitting there for almost 300 days vacant. And I am in touch with the owner. He's an LLC, and he bought it for $170,000, and he wants a lot of money to sell it and or lease it. And so we had a little get together, he and I shared my views with him that I felt that he was a little out of the market, but we'll see what happens there. We're going to stay in touch. And then the other property, which is probably a long shot, but would be wonderful if it materialized. And I want to thank Tony Gertz for this. There is a fellow, some of you may know the Reading name Greiner, Will Greiner, who is interested and has some investors. He owns a manufacturing company, and he's interested in acquiring the old Emery Theater, which is at 481 West Benson next to Holt House. Do any of you remember the Emery Theater? Yeah, I knew I would get some yeses there. So he is working with the business manager or the owner of the property, and we'll see if something comes out of that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about General Tool Company. You will recall that the city, and we still do have, about $620,000 in grant money to put a roadway to a new facility off of Reading Road that General Tool wants to build to manufacture and assemble parts for the Arleigh Burke Navy carrier. That project was ready to roll. Okay, they actually selected a new developer, and it was ready to roll when COVID hit. And the Navy and the contractor, General Tools, a subcontractor, pulled the project. Not good, but for now it's pulled. So I have been busy talking to our three funding sources of that money to make sure that, number one, we can hang on to it long enough, General Tool make this decision, which could be a year away, frankly. And number two, if we cannot use it at General Tool, can we use it for another job generating project in Reading, because it has to have jobs associated with it. So that's keeping us busy. The Nivison property, you all know that Avecia had been very interested in using that property for an expansion, and that did not work out. So we listed it with Bill Kiefer of Colliers, and I have monthly updates with Mr. Kiefer. And his latest report, he said that the real estate market in general, of course, has been negatively hit by COVID, but the industrial market is starting to rebound. Now, there aren't many new projects. There are, as he said, 3 or 4 out there that, you know, they're thinking about it. Office is at a standstill, and that's expected to just continue to plummet. So they're very good about sending listings out monthly to all the brokerage companies and to Ready Cincinnati, which gets a lot of prospects on their site. And they have presented the site in the last 6 months during the COVID, about 3 different companies, and they just did not work. This is, you will recall the last time we met and talked about Nivison, the council decided that they were willing to wait and be patient to see if a life science company, which realistically would be Avecia. Avecia has said, not now, maybe in the future. And you were willing to wait for that. So here's my question for council, and it's a timely question. You guys are going to be looking at the, I believe, the zoning code recommendations. They've gone to Planning Commission. If council wants to, and this is the recommendation of the realtor, they've come to the realization that aside from a biotech company that's adjacent, locating on the site, office isn't going to work there. And so the site is unusual in that it has a railroad, the boundary, and then housing. So, you know, the feeling is that anybody, whether it's local or a national level, they're looking for a place that has similar uses. This would be for the big office companies. So he really feels we should focus and zone that to a use that allows manufacturing. And I wanted to share that with council. It's your decision. You'll be seeing that when it comes to you, the zoning code recommendations. Okay, let's go back up to the Dow site and talk a little bit more about that. I know that Melissa and Patrick and I, we are holding a monthly update meetings every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. So it'll actually be tomorrow. And you folks will recall the presentation that she made. That property has about $8 million. They paid $700,000 for it. All right. And it's got another 7.2 million that needs to occur with asbestos abatement, remediation, site prep work, demo. I mean, there's 2.6 million in demo that needs to occur. And so we are I'm working very closely with them. They've already, between the two of us, gotten some funds to do the environmental study and remediation to meet to meet the federal US EPA guidelines. Now the project is with the state, and we are working with them, and we're trying to get a grant from them for a significant amount of money to do a good part of that asbestos abatement, demo, and remediation. You'll recall they also have money from their capital investors in this. I mean, they bought the site, they paid $700,000 to buy the site. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight. You know, it take 3 to 5 years, I would say, at least. And but it is going to happen, and it is with the appropriate group, economic development group, to allow it to happen. If the port, and you'll recall, they initially declined us, and we pushed and pushed, and they finally did come on board and said that they would be our partner, and they are the right partner for this project because they are the ones who can access all those funds. You know, I think there was somebody had asked, well, why didn't the city buy it? Well, you all wouldn't let me buy Thaman Auto Repair Shop without a phase 1 and a phase 2. There's no way, I don't think, that council would have allowed spending $700,000 for a site that has so much environmental uncertainty on it and so much demo. And, you know, like I said, it's almost $8 million. So they're the right group to do this. They have access to the funding from their capital investors, from these grant projects. And Melissa Johnson will be coming to this group on, I think, Chris, it's October 20th, isn't it? We'll both be here again on October 20th. And I just wish we had met tomorrow because she's coming tomorrow. All right. I think I've pretty much come all the way up the Reading Road and Benson Street. I guess if there, I know, Chris, thank you for asking council to send questions. I did hear from Dave Powell with a question, and I also had questions from Tony Gertz. Your question was pretty easy, so I'll go ahead and answer that one first. You had asked, should council accept at a minimum or adopt the master plan. My understanding from Patrick is that Planning Commission was the body that had to adopt it, and they did some time ago. In fact, I have used that master plan to get $620,000 in grants, and will continue to use that master plan update for that. My feeling, I would be delighted if City Council would adopt it. It's not absolutely necessary, but I think that it shows that Council strongly supports the recommendations, and that's my 2 cents worth on that, Dave and rest of Council. That's something I think working with Patrick on would be important. And then Tony's questions. Just a minute. Okay, here, they're right in front of me. Where some of these I may have already answered.
I think you have, Linda.
Okay, yeah, the Nivison, okay. And then the pipeline going through Nivison, Patrick said he was going to answer that question, but he's not on. So I don't know.
He shared something with Carla. Is there anything in that document that he shared with you, Carla, about the Nivison property and the pipeline? We'll let you look for it for a second. Go ahead, Linda.
Just a second, Chris. I believe Patrick passed around updated copies of an easement, and I believe that easement was going through that property.
Okay.
It was my understanding they were going to make attempts to try and circumvent damaging our use of the property by either going in a circumvented way or along the railroad tracks or something of that nature. So I hope that's happened.
It looked like to me, Tony, that it was pushed more over towards the railroad.
It was.
I wouldn't swear by it, but I believe that's what it showed.
Okay, well, I don't want to beat it to death because Linda wants to get dinner, I bet.
Thanks, Tony.
A fine glass of wine, I'm sure.
I'm planning on that, actually. Right. So the city-owned property north of McDonald's, any potential economic use. You'll require, we got that property with a grant, and we got another grant to do the phase 1, phase 2 on it. We sold it, and the owner went bankrupt. He left, and we got the property back. Dave, you can confirm all of that, but I believe that's what happened. Honestly, the interest that we've had in that site is outdoor storage, which we don't want there.
Oh.
There are, the Bridal Association has talked about the possibility of buying it, but that was quite some time ago. So, no, I don't have an answer for that one. I have to be very honest. I will think on that some more.
All right.
I did go to Mueller, the owner of Edward Mueller, the cabinetry place next door, and has been in to see him several times. And he sort of equivocates, yeah, I might be interested in buying it, and maybe. And I indicated to him that, I thought we could work a deal with him. So.
Is that property on the west side of the railroad tracks and then south of McDonald's or north of McDonald's?
No, this is the property behind Rallies I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's on the south side.
Yeah.
Of McDonald's. Okay.
Right.
Should we explore the possibility of temporary parking for the Bridal District, or is it not necessary?
Well, that's what the Bridal District was interested in, Tony. Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea. And in fact, I will tell you this. There's a new president of the Bridal District. Alan had been president for quite some time, Alan Hill, and now the owner of on the corner there, what's their names? Nick. No, it's Nick.
Nick and Renee.
Thank you, Nick and Renee. Thank you, Katie. We're going to we're going to discuss this at the next chamber meeting, but be co-presidents of the association. And Nick and Renee and Alan came to me, about a month ago, and said, do you think that the city would be interested in selling the site, the old BP gas station site where the mural is, which is already used as parking? And, I said, well, what would be your intention for that? And he said parking, and we'd like to make maybe a nice gateway, entryway, a fountain or something. And so I said, well, put a proposal together. You can come to council and talk to them about that. I'm not sure they have the funds to do that, but I have to see. So they are going to do that. And I don't know when they're going to come, but they've indicated they would like to do that. So I know that they want to preserve the parking that is there, and they always need more parking. So I will talk to them about that, the possibility of that. Like if they paved it, we could have some sort of a lease agreement with them. We could work something out, I'm sure. If council, I can just look into that.
Okay.
Okay. Ian's Dow, the nuisance. It needs to be secured and demolished. And yes, they are, through this grant, trying to secure $2.5 million to start the demolition. So that's going to come, but it's not going to come tomorrow.
My concern.
And, go ahead.
My concern is that it's an attractive nuisance for who knows what to get in there. There's no real fencing or gates that prevent people going in and out of there. Now, I don't know what their opportunities would be to get any kind of grants for that, or how much that may cost. But the building itself, the old, I call it Carlisle Chemical original building, is vandalized to a great degree, and people could accost somebody and easily drag them into that facility. There's nothing to prevent that. Then we got the pool and the other stadium properties around here, and you got the walking trail and those kind of things. That's what I was worried about.
Okay, I will call Melissa and ask her about the possibility of putting up some gate. I think we did already talk to her about this, but maybe that's something they can move forward more quickly on.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask her about that when I talk to her tomorrow. Okay, extending Riesenberg Lane was a mistake. Okay, Tony, I very humbly will disagree with that, because the fact of the matter is the port would not have purchased the site if the access was not there from Riesenberg.
Well,
And Nair, who is the preferred developer on this now, they would not have been interested without that Riesenberg Lane extension. They looked at several options, and even if you could get a bridge over, an improved bridge from Barrett Paving, who wants to look at all those stacks? I mean, they're mile high of paving materials. And we didn't get a lot of cooperation from the owner of that little bridge and from the owner of the property, the former Cincinnati Drum site. He has not shown any interest in selling his property, working with us to expand the bridge. I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, I'm not trying to disagree that we shouldn't have ingress and egress to the property back there. I just didn't agree with using that particular method, and there is eminent domain if we would have to take, but to get into the possibility of constructing that and getting ourselves over to, well, I guess they still call it Cabot Lane. I don't know what they call it right now, but ultimately I'm told that Evendale is going to develop property with some of the Formica property, and they're going to extend Cooper Road on back in there. That's their goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Port Authority actually purchased 42 acres of greenfield property, Formica property. They did purchase that recently. And, it's a different game than we have going on, because it is a greenfield site. It is easy to develop. We have $7 million of remediation and demo. Ours is a more difficult site, and I know that the port is up to doing it. But my guess is that site would probably develop before we're ready to go to market. I don't see that site as being in competition with us.
Well, my goal was to try to look for another method to get from Reading Road to Cabot Lane and take some of the heavy traffic that flows through our portion of the more residential commercial neighborhood and get
Mhm.
industrial movement across there.
Yeah.
Actually, Bob Ashrock had that idea years ago, but
Mhm.
also it's, you know, I've been down there when Valley, the VYO has had baseball games and tractor trailers are going through there, and that is one dangerous situation.
Yeah.
So you live out in Levelland, and so you don't have the worry of.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
You live out in Levelland, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of love out here, Tony, right. Well, I will tell you this too. We asked the Port Authority to look at the possibility of extending Cooper to access the Dow site. And all you need is an aerial view of the site to see that is not going to happen. Way too costly. You have to go over the Mill Creek twice, to go over the railroad tracks. You have to go over property that the landowner will not allow anybody to take a roadway over under any circumstance for reasons that I can't get into. But so even if you could get over all those hurdles, then you end up either having to go through where MSD is or over the Pristine site, which is another hole, or general tool site. So, you know, I might ask Melissa, although it's not her job to do that, but I might ask her if she can to get me an aerial view of the site so you can see that October 20th. It is impossible from a cost, not only from a cost standpoint, but from being able to acquire property and control property where the owner, and I'm not going to go into detail who it is, but this isn't for Mike, it's somebody else up there, okay? And they don't want anybody coming over their land with anything.
You're talking about they were very delinquent in their taxes at one time, their real estate taxes, I believe. Are we talking about the same property?
No, we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not. We're talking, okay, I'll just tell you, we're talking about General Electric. You
Okay.
need to go through part of General Electric. And there's a certain part of their land, and it happens to be where this road would go, that for reasons I don't want to get into, they don't want anybody going near that site.
All right. Well, I don't want to belabor it.
So if you want to take on GE, you can. I don't think so, though.
GE let us put well fields up there many years back. And
Right.
It was very cooperative. I'm not going to belabor it, but I don't want to just, not.
Well, I think, Tony, what we really do need to do is like talk to Melissa about, okay, you need to put gates up there. If there are tractor trailers going back there, what are they going back there for? It's probably, yeah. You know, we can ask her to start controlling the site sooner than later.
Okay.
And I think that will help with, because I'm sensitive to that issue. I know that that's something that's on the minds of all of council.
You got to
I
go back.
understand why.
You got to go back and talk to your husband, Mark, when Danny will tell you how difficult it was to get a streetscape project and a 5-foot sword down the middle of Benson Street.
Yes, right.
If you don't plan and look for it, you're never going to accomplish it.
That's a trip down memory lane.
I'm sorry I'm taking up this time.
Are there any other questions from council for tonight?
I have one, yeah.
Maybe.
Katie.
I noticed that the available sign that was at IGA's old property on Reading Road is gone, and I was wondering if somebody had purchased that, if anything's going there.
Must be gone since last week.
Yeah, it's
Because last week it was up. I actually, Angelo's needs a space on Reading Road. Their landlord is giving them a year and they're gone, Jefferson. So I actually went up and down Reading Road, and I think that sign was still there last week. So did it just happen?
I believe it was last week that I noticed it was gone, but unless
Well, we
maybe
must
they
have just
put it back
crossed
up.
over by days because it was up when I was there, but I will check into that. Make a note of that.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Linda, for coming out and bringing us up.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I wish I could see you all in person.
Well,
And Carla, I will get you some notes for your minutes.
Linda, I do want to thank you for the looking into the Grippo potato chip
yes.
thing too.
Right. I talked to one of the owners and he said they actually bought that property some time ago for a future expansion in Fairfield. And they've got plans. They're putting footers in. So they're moving forward with that.
Okay. Well, I know whoever
Thank
the lady was that talked at Colerain's meeting was pretty irate.
Yeah, he
So I
wasn't
just
sure
thought,
who that
you know, she
was.
threatened- Yeah, she threatened, you know, we're moving if you guys don't start cooperating with us a little bit. And,
Well, he laughed about that because he said we were moving anyway. So, and he didn't know who that was. Yeah, but I did check into
I'm not
that.
sure.
I really appreciate when
Okay,
you give me recommendations or ideas.
Okay,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming tonight, and we will look forward to you coming back in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some demo going by then, I hope.
And everyone can start thinking about their questions that they would like both Linda and Ms. Johnson to answer. So, and get them off to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Bye.
We have no audience participation this evening. Reading of any communications?
I do have something from Donna Wiggins, who is the manager of the Reading Farmers Market. She wrote, the Reading Farmers Market wants to make sure all residents are able to enjoy our healthy, fresh produce and other food items. So we now are accepting SNAP EBT payments. We also have produce perks tokens, which are a $1 for dollar match of SNAP purchases up to $25 a day. If you buy $10 in SNAP tokens, you receive $10 in produce perks. If you buy 30 in SNAP tokens, you receive the maximum of 25 in produce perks, and so on. We also accept the Council on Aging's Senior Farmers Market vouchers. Anyone 60 or over who meets the income guidelines is eligible for $50 in vouchers for the purchase of produce. More information can be found on our Reading Farmers Market Facebook page or by emailing readingfarmersmarket@aol.com or just stop by the welcome booth on Friday. We have also extended our season to the end of October. So come out and see us on Vine Street where it intersects with Reading Road until October 30th.
Okay. That's very good to know. Any other communications?
No, sir.
Then I'll go to council committee reports. We'll start with Finance Committee, Chairman Mr. Gertz. Mr. Gertz.
Mr. Gertz has left the building.
We will come back as we need to there. Go to Utilities, Lands and Buildings, Chairman Mr. Lindeman. I did talk with ICRC. Keith, are you still on?
Yes, sir, and I have the video to play whenever you'd like me to.
Do you like to play that right now, Don?
Yes, that'd be ideal.
Okay, go ahead then, Mr. Keith.
Hi, I'm Bennett Kotler, Project Manager with the Mill Creek Alliance. We're back at the Reading Floodplain Bench Project to see the progress that's been made. If you've seen our previous videos, it's unbelievable to see the work that was done by ERC, our construction contractor. They removed a total of 800 truckloads of soil, and they regraded this area so we see a contoured bench, and it looks almost park-like. You can see the various zones. We've got the armored stream bank, and we've got a bench, which is a shallower area where controlled flooding can take place. And then we have an upland area. Right now, our landscaping contractor, Cardno, is laying down seed. They've only been at work at this for 1 day, but by using a drill seeding technique, they've gotten a lot done. And this whole system will settle in for the fall, and we'll expect to see good things in the spring. See you the next time.
I want to thank Mr. Kotler for doing that for us, and for Keith being able to work with Chris to get it on tonight. I think that so many people would not be able to see this if it had not been for this little short video.
I think that was fantastic. You want to go with the, you got more in your report? Or is
So that's all tonight. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Don,
Yes.
I got my Constellation renewal thing in the mail today. You might want to talk about that a little bit. I know
Well,
we did
Randy, I
talk-
would. I didn't get the mail until after 6, and I have not had a chance to look it over. But if you have, please feel free.
I mean, it breaks it down really well. You know, it talks about the program. It talks about, you know, figuring out whether you're in or out of it. If you want to get out of it, you know, it tells you how you can do it. There's 3 different ways, both, well, mail, phone, or web. And then what's really good is there's a second, there's another sheet in there with questions and answers. And that pretty well covers everything. So, you know, when the people get this, and it's marked really, the envelope is marked really well. You won't mistake it for junk mail. So, you know.
I appreciate that, Randy, and we usually ask the mayor to sign it, but sometimes these things slip through without it. At least it has the logo for City of
It
Reading.
does have the Reading logo.
Yes, and the other thing is that Patrick has done a real fine job of putting it on Facebook, explanations for people that were
Right.
questioning it.
It is not signed by the mayor, but the City of Reading is a signature on it. So, you know, and like you said, Patrick has also done a good job. So, just wanted to put that out there. I guess people should start looking for it since the renewal dates is coming up now.
All right, thanks, Randy. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Lindeman? Thank you very much, Mr. Lindeman. Zoning, Planning, and Environment Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Chris. The Reading Planning Commission met on August 24th, 2020, and approved proposed changes to the zoning code. Once I receive notice of the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I will schedule a committee meeting to review the changes before it is brought before council for a public hearing. So members of the committee, Katie and Tom, I will let you guys know and check your availability once we have the proposed changes in hand. Also, I will be bringing an ordinance to the floor next meeting to adopt the most recent master plan. It's my understanding that it's not required for council to adopt the master plan, but I feel it would be an important gesture to show support if that's how this body chooses to vote. That's all that I have.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, I had to step out. I'm sorry, but do we, it was reported, I thought that, I don't know if you checked that, I guess the website doesn't have the correct fees on the zoning amendments or something. Has that been booked into or checked?
It's been mentioned, but I can follow up again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Powell. Laws and Contracts, Chairwoman, Ms. Edichico.
Thank you, Chris. I have been gathering information from both the city and the school regarding the utility poles and the lawsuit. I've also gone through posts on the community forum page on Facebook and the comments from each post, as well as letters that have been sent to council. I've reviewed the video from the public portion of the December 26th meeting, and I've been reading through emails and other documents. I sent out what I have so far to each council member on Sunday so that we could discuss it tonight. Included with that was the petition and the signatures from citizens asking that the lawsuit be dropped. Tom Bemis sent me this statement, which was included with what I sent to each council member. He said, "Dear council, there was a question about how the petition was presented and signatures acquired. For clarity, the petition was presented as written. In short, the signers humbly ask council to drop the lawsuit and allow the polls in question to remain. We do not want our money spent to move polls or pay lawyers to fight over them." Surprisingly to me, many people were already aware of the issue. Most were actually eager to sign because they agreed it was a great waste of our money. I went door to door on Fernridge and in Cherryfield. I got over 300 signatures. Knocking on hundreds of doors, not one person told me that they disagreed with the petition. 2 said they simply don't sign petitions. A few others collected an additional 200 signatures. When the governor asked us to be careful due to COVID-19, a decision was made to do what city council and most others were doing and do our petition remotely. In a few days, we collected over 300 online signatures. If we could have continued to go door to door, I believe we would have easily tripled our number of signatures. From the school, I received copies of a letter to Dan Brooks from Chuck LaFata requesting clarification to the PDD and asking for the polls to remain in place. An email to Dan Brooks with the estimates to move the polls from Duke, Cincinnati Bell, and Spectrum. A letter from Dan Brooks to Chuck LaFata stating that the school board should submit a revised development plan through the PDD process. The ordinance for PDD number 2, and land surveys and the grant easement from Hamilton County Auditor. And then, as Dave said, I've had word that there's going to be some zoning changes possibly coming from the Planning Commission about underground wires for any future construction. So that is something to consider. A reminder that on November 11, 2019, the Planning Commission did vote 3-2 to allow the poles to remain in the current location. The December 26th vote by council was to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and that motion failed 4-2 with Mr. Powell abstaining. I also have a statement from Mayor Bemis that says, "I have let council members in our community know on numerous occasions that I do not approve of a single taxpayer dollar being spent on putting utility lines underground in an area that has numerous telephone poles. Each council member knows very well how I feel about this topic. I am on televised council meetings on numerous occasions, letting everyone clearly know that no matter who one feels is right or wrong, that it should be, or that it would be, an incredible waste of hard-earned taxpayer dollars to put those utilities underground. In my 21 years as an elected official, I have said numerous times that our city and our schools must work together to assist each other. And from my administration's actions, we have proven that we do exactly that every day." So on my end, from what I've received so far, it appears that the school was trying to follow the proper steps to amend the PDD. I'm still waiting on some information. I've contacted Dan Brooks. I'm waiting to hear back from him to see if he has anything for me. But I will say that the overwhelming majority of Facebook comments, letters read to council, messages, speakers at meetings are all in favor of leaving the polls where they are, not forcing the schools to pay to move them, and they're against the lawsuit. I have also spoken with business owners in the Bridal District who are not happy about their tax dollars being spent on this lawsuit. So I believe it's time that we put our personal feelings aside and we look at this issue with fresh eyes and with the knowledge of how the majority of the taxpayers within our city feel. So that's pretty much what I sent out to everyone on Sunday, and I wanted to read that again and then open it up for discussion.
Hey, Katie, this is Mel. I didn't receive anything. I would appreciate it if you'd share that with me as well.
Yeah.
The other thing, Katie, was you did get some current up-to-date costs, I think from Sabrina on the lawsuit from Reading. And did you get an update on the school expenditures?
I haven't yet. Colette Lewis is putting that together for me. I was contacting her within the last 2 weeks before the school year was starting. So she was getting things to me in between of getting everything set up for the school. So I understand, but she is still working on getting that together for me. She did say at this point it's minimum as it is on the cities, but with COVID and everything else, you know, those things are.
Well, you know, you say minimum, I think it was what, $2,500 in that neighborhood? so far for the city?
Yeah, just short of that.
Okay. You double that, figuring theirs is around the same, that's 10%.
Right.
10% of the whole cost. So I think it's already getting to the point where it's not that small.
Right.
Chris,
Yes.
I wanted to report that I had talked with Daryl Courtney recently, and I got some things clarified for me, I think in terms of what I thought did happen or whatever, and I don't think they're correct, but he sort of showed me, number one, how the houses on Bolser were fed by a pole that was on Columbia that went to the backyard of one of the houses there, and then of course to the rear of the houses on Bolser. I was under the impression that someone had said that he had given permission for the two poles on the property of the school to be taken down or to be put up. That's not the case. He indicated that the two poles that he had given permission as a city representative to take the two poles, one that was on Columbia, and then there was another at the corner of Columbia and Bolser that was deteriorating. But those two poles had to come down so that along with another one in the backyard of what is now the parking lot. He had given permission to take those poles down. He did not give permission for the two poles that are right now on the school's property. And so I was a little confused on that before, and I think I know what the situation is now. Apparently, Mr. Furness from the school gave the permission for those two poles to be placed on the school property. Now, whether or not it was understood that they were going to be temporary, I don't know. I know also apparently that there was a conduit of some sort put underneath the road in the eventuality that somebody might want to put the lines in that again feed the back properties of Bolser. So I just want to let you know that that's sort of what I found out recently, and it sort of changes some of the thinking that I may be having in reference to this question.
Okay.
Danny, do you have any, or would Daryl have any documentation of what he signed off on? That's one of the things that I've asked the school for, and I'm waiting to hear back.
I have a copy of the request for the pole, the poles that were taken out on Columbia and at the corner of Columbia and that. That's what I have. He gave me a copy of that, and as well as a request. It's over there underneath your purse. The request that came from the school to remove or from Duke to remove those poles. But yes, I do have that, which I had not had before. Yes, so I have it.
So can you share those with Katie then? Send copies.
Yes, I can.
Carla, can you do that for your dad?
I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? I'm still, I guess, a little too confused. Those houses on Bolser had always been fed from the backside on both sides of the street, and once the houses that were purchased and demolished were removed and those trees taken down, are the two poles that are there, were they not always there, but behind trees and houses that no one noticed? Yes. Or were they put up?
No, the way I understand it, the way it was originally fed was from a pole on Columbia, just I guess that would be south of Bolser, that went then, I guess, west or east. Through the yard and then back behind the houses on Bolser. That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
And it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, it would have been in the yard of one of the houses
Yes.
that It was on Columbia.
That's correct.
So they were always there.
Hmm.
They were not put up.
No.
Yeah, they were just moved. Yeah.
The ones that are still there behind the
It's
houses
just
on
you
both
couldn't-
are always there.
Yeah, you couldn't see them with all the trees and the houses. And once they were gone, it became obvious that there were telephone lines there and power lines. Anyone else have any comments on the report that took a lot of your time, Katie? I really appreciate you digging in and getting all that information. If anyone else can think of any information they have that they should send that off to Katie also.
Well, first of all, I'd like to, I don't know if I want to get into the heavy conversation tonight. It depends on where it's going to go, but I have quite a few things I'd like to cover relative to this issue. Number one, to clarify what you're bringing up, Mr. Nesbitt, which it's peculiar to me that you're, exploring this thing in such a detail, but those poles are all new poles that are located on Balser that the school installed. The only pole that was approved was the pole out in the right of way at Balser and Columbia, which was moved probably several hundred feet from where the original service line ran back to the people that live on Balser Drive. That I'm getting the impression you think that they were hidden and they would by trees or brush or some other material. Those poles were behind the houses or the house, and certainly the one on the corner that were torn down. Those are all new poles. The pole that Mr. Courtney approved was basically to say he didn't even approve it. He had just allow them to put it in the right of way. The poles basically had to be approved by some higher people up more than he is. He was merely serving as a chief of public works, saying, yes, it's in the right of way. You can put that pole in the right of way. Who authorized to put the pole there, to set it all up, was all to be a temporary installation. And that it escapes me that people can't remember that the service director for probably 2 years on to 3 years at almost every council meeting announced that was all temporary, that all of that installation was temporary. The gentleman that lives up on there reported it to the school immediately when the poles were delivered and dropped, and everyone was told that those are all temporary installations. And then all of a sudden, after Mr. LaFata come along and said, nope, we're going to leave them there. Well, that wasn't even a discussion, and that was way back in 2017. Long before this ever came to fruition. Now, I'm prepared to go into a lengthy discussion about this. I don't know whether it's necessary tonight or what the approach would be. I am not in favor of granting any further changes. I got numerous explanations here. I don't know if people want to hear that tonight or if there's going to be a further discussion. I don't know where.
I think it would be appropriate for you to create a document of the things that you want, so it can go into the committee's other findings and documents that Katie has is grounding up. Can you do it that way, or?
I disagree with you. We didn't have any kind of committee meeting. I recommended a committee of council on a separate night to have the discussion.
And we can still do that.
But we never had a committee meeting. Katie went and sent this all out to the people over Sunday. It's the first I got it. So I think I'm just going to go ahead through my laundry list of things and get it into the record as best I can. And I hope you all will bear with me. We're going to vote on it. We can vote on it. You can do what you want, but here's where I'm coming from. First of all, I get this impression from Mr. Bemis as he was distributing this petition, and to digress for a split second, this is probably one of the, I've been around a long time. It's probably one of the most flamboyant and careless kinds of petition I've ever seen. First of all, he refers to them as telephone poles, and one of our own high school graduates who works in the industry, these are high voltage electric poles. I saw it on Facebook that he put out, and he said in there, that voltage is not just dangerous, it's deadly. So when you get into the people who are doing the experts, I think we need to get into more detail about just arbitrarily saying, well, it cost some amount of money to replace the poles that from its inception from the inception, the installation of those poles, it was defined as all temporary. Now, temporary is far cry from where we are today. And, you know, when you look at this thing, it frustrates me that council has to address this thing. You know, the council voted on this to accept the PDD, what is it, 3-4 years ago now. And everything was supposed to be underground. And we get criticized because, you know, we decided that, yes, you should do what you agreed to do. We're, in effect, we're awarding poor judgment by the administration of the school. You know, to say that the council has, don't care is really aggravating to me. We approved over approximately $1 million worth of infrastructure up there. Even the mayor has said on numerous occasions several years ago, and I'm not in the power to be, but that the school should have probably been built somewhere else, but that's where they decide to build it, and that's so be it. But the council, the city of Reading, approved the reconstruction of Balser Drive. It made the mouth of the street wider so you could have better ingress and egress. We made all kind of changes on Benson Street. We made the intersection to be conforming to the intersection of the entry for ingress and egress of the school. All new curb, gutter, sidewalk up and down Columbiana, $1 million. So don't sit here and tell me that the council that is working on this, and most of the people are here, all except for Ms. Adetta Chico, don't care about the children. That, to me, that's a false narrative to use children as the method. And then even there, what are we telling our children? We're telling our children, you know, if you screw up, just go back and say, I'm sorry. And, you know, you don't have to abide by your contracts. You don't have to abide by your honor. You don't have to abide by your commitments. You merely say, well, it's going to cost too much, and therefore we should not have to do as we agreed to do. You know, and all through the last several years, Mr. Ross, at numerous council meetings, advised people that this is a temporary installation. There were even times I recall that he said, well, we're not going to let the school open until they fix that. Then all of a sudden at the end, which I think was rather disingenuous, I think it's a disingenuous, even Mr. Bemis, Tom Bemis, in the circulating of the petition of our mayor to, I think the mayor should have recused himself from the vote in the planning commission, to be frank with you. I mean, with the number of relatives that are gainfully employed, and then to take the position that that has no bearing on what's going on when we subsequently find out that their budget is going to be severely in trouble, and they're probably going to, I was even told they're going to seek probably another levy. Well, maybe there's more to this than just, you know, we're all doing great, guys, and we're all just doing this for the children. The petition is not accurate. Nowhere has anyone shown me an exact estimate of what it would cost to go ahead and to put these underground like they were supposed to be. We see $50,000 plus. Tom Bemis didn't give anybody any, I don't see any written estimates. I don't see, now there's a letter written that Chuck LaFotta made some references to. I saw that. That didn't add up to $50,000. Even that added up to 40. And what's frustrating is that the school, I mean, you can say, well, we're just criticizing each other. No, just save the money. Well, the school spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $38,000 to $40,000 to put in a temporary installation, you know, and then they employed Chuck LaFotta as the project manager and paid him $1,000 a month. Now, I like Chuck LaFotta. I've met him, and he's one of the men that served our country, and he and I have a lot of things in common, but I don't think he has any credentials to be a project manager on a $53 million project. And when he authorized these things, it was a huge mistake. You know, I have a client that actually worked for Duke, and he and 3 other guys that worked at Duke retired from Duke and started their own electrical line crews. They owned about 10 or 12 line trucks. And so I said, hey, would you go up here and take a look at this with me? said, I don't know what it cost. And he did. And he walked, and there were several of us, and myself, another councilman, and another resident, and this gentleman. And as he looked at it, he said, well, where did the pole line run? And that's what you were just bringing up earlier. The pole line ran directly from the back of those houses straight out to Columbia Avenue. So he said, well, how far is that from that last pole all the way across Columbia Avenue? There's a location on the side. It was determined it was about 400 feet, 450 feet, something like that. He said, well, you can bore under the ground easily 500 feet. He said, why did they do it that way? And we said, glory be, we don't know. And I said to him, well, how expensive it is to bore under the ground and bore it all the way out to under the Columbia Avenue into a pole. Now, this is a field he works in, and he worked in it for many years. He said, well, you got to take the old poles, the poles they just put up, all the temporaries down. He said you would put a 6-inch conduit and you'd run it all the way from that end pole that runs behind the houses on Bolser, underground all the way across and under Columbia Avenue, another pole, and then hook up, and you put it all underground. You put a 6-inch conduit, 3 3-inch conduits in. One of the 3-inch conduits would carry the electrical lines. One of the 3-inch conduits would carry the telephone, and one would carry the Wi-Fi. Now, I didn't know telephone and Wi-Fi. And I said, well, what's that going to cost? Just measuring it out. He said, well, somewhere between $23,000 and $25,000. Now, that's a far cry than 50 plus, isn't it? My estimates aren't
You're
written.
asking for a quote?
Well, I did not, because I didn't employ. He's not employed by me. Neither does the court. There's no quotes, anything from the school. They're just estimates at Duke and telephone and Wi-Fi.
I don't think you have to.
Let me finish. Let me finish. You can ask me all the
Well, I mean, you're bringing something up that I'm saying.
I don't know that you're questioning me on it. Let me finish my comments. You didn't interrupt Mrs. Adachico and any great DLTO. Let me finish this, Chris, and then you can ask me all the questions you want. The man worked in the field. He gave me the measurements, and he told me what it would cost. Secondly, another individual was contacted who used to work for Duke. Now, I didn't talk to that person. Someone else did. And the quote was in the same area, $25,000. So it's frustrating to me when a bad decision was made to begin with, and $38,000 to $40,000 was spent on temporaries that were told to be temporaries for many years. The people on Balser, they bought those homes with the anticipation that all the wiring would be, the poles would be behind the houses. It's not aesthetically attractive for the people on Balser, but that don't matter because nobody else lives on Balser that's concerned about it, and they have poles in front of their houses. And I hate to tell you, but look at all the new developments. Look where you live, Chris. Everything is underground that we want to put in today. And it reflects exactly what the gentleman who was on the Facebook said, that it's better to put wiring underground than it is to put it overhead. And it's on school property. If it gets struck or something happens to it, the bill is going to be much greater than it's going to be if it's underground, and less likely that it'll even occur. So what we're talking about here is keeping a contract that they're supposed to keep and following the rule of law. Now, the burden that strikes me is they went to the made an amendment, went to the Planning Commission. Two of the members of the Planning Commission have been on there for many, many years, voted absolutely no. And then we had the mayor and the service director, the same service director, that told everybody they were temporary, which I think was rather disingenuous. And I think we had a person that should have recused himself from voting. I compliment Mr. Powell. He don't vote on these things because he checked with the Ethics Commission and he don't vote for these things because he was on a committee as this thing was unfolding. So the proposal that we have compared to what broad estimates that Mr. Thomas Bemis is putting out there, I think if people totally understand all the ramifications of how this thing would come down, they may have a different view. And so the other thing that bothers me, they want a variance on a PDD. That, pardon me, but we're going to have another run-in, I guess, or I hope not a run-in, but a plan. I live down here in the valley, and they just demolished all the central school. I didn't ask Linda Fitzgerald this, but currently it's being discussed. There are federal laws that's unfolding where, and the present federal administration is not going to enforce them, but I don't know what would happen if something different were voted in, where the federal government wants to require suburban communities to accept other kind of housing into their community so that we can start to, to spread the wealth, I guess, or spread what do you want to call it. Well, people who bought homes in other parts of suburban communities, they don't anticipate that they're going to have some other kind of sub-housing, multiple family dwellings, or other kinds of apartment complexes. And that worries me with the central school property. That's in my ward. Not only that, it's down from my own house. So what is the school going to do there? I'd like to know what's going to happen there. Are they going to have a PDD and then say, oh, well, we got to back out from that? I'm very concerned about all these issues of unfolding concerning what's happening within the community relative to the school. I don't dislike. I got my own grandson plays on a football team. I got numerous kids I taught at St. Peter and Paul when I taught religion for 10 years ago there. I don't dislike any of the children. I love them. I'm not going to teach them to walk away from their responsibilities and not meet their contracts that they agree to because they say it's going to cost a little more money that was made by poor judgment by people. And then everybody's coming into city council when the law was passed. It was voted and it passed. Now the city administration is shirking their duty and not enforcing the law. And then council had to come along and say, well, if you're not going to enforce it, then we're going to have to enforce it. People think that that we drop this lawsuit, it all goes away. I hate to tell you all, but it isn't going all the way. It isn't going to go away. There are people already formulating their desire to go forward with a mandamus lawsuit. Now, whether they can be successful or not, I'll leave it up to Dave if he wants to go into more detail, but a mandamus lawsuit is a lawsuit that basically says the government has made a decision or it has an obligation to enforce its laws. And if it doesn't enforce them, they can go to court and then they will say, okay, they'll review it, make a determination and say, well, you either should or, well, no, you don't have to. So residents are going to step forward. This lawsuit, I don't believe, is ever going to go away until there's some finality to it. If they file a mandamus lawsuit, then I believe what's going to happen is they're going to sue the city of Reading for its failure to take action like they're supposed to. The city administration should have been acting much more aggressively to enforce the decision of council and not to grant a variance. So if they take this mandamus suit against the city, now we're going to be sued again. So what are we going to do? Sit back on our haunches? No, we're going to sue the school board because they're the ones that failed to take the action. This is not just going to go away. It's something that has to be addressed and it has to be resolved. Now, I could go into more detail. I have some other issues, but I don't sense that just everybody wants to listen to all of this. I'm concerned about the central school property. I'm concerned about the hilltop property. What I have thought about today, I don't care if it costs $75,000. Now, I went to a different school, graduated from it. I still love Reading, the Reading school system, and I have many friends that go there. We talk about Daryl Courtney. He's probably one of the finest basketball players that ever played there. Claude Holstein, he played professional. He had the Cutters, the Willets, and many others that I knew and played ball with all many years. So they have a lot of fine athletes and fine people. But when you sit at this thing and you say to yourself, well, how are we going to pay for this? We're all going to have, the city's going to have to pay and the school's going to have to pay. Well, the school I graduated from, they wanted to put a new parking lot in at the end of their base or football stadium. They didn't readily have the money. They went back to the alumni and they had events. They had ways to generate funds. Now, I went to a parochial school system and they generated more than enough money to build that new parking lot. So why can't, Mr. Demis is a magician, he's good at doing tricks. So why don't we have a big event in the city? And we could have a big show or a presentation. We got a lot of people. Kenny Rushy, he's been very helpful throughout the contributing to the school and to the city and to even St. Pierre and Paul Academy over the years. There are a lot of men out there, I think, that would be willing to participate. I mean, we had the business that spent $40,000 to put a mural to say love on the side of a building that we just talked about. So why don't we go out and have a program to raise the funds, and then the school don't have to pay for it. I'm not enthused about another levy. I'm hearing it's coming down the pike. Why don't we have why don't they take that kind of initiative? There wouldn't be any lawsuits. They agreed to do it. This was stated by another councilman. Just do what they were supposed to do, get it done, and quit wasting our time and money, and quit causing all this friction and conflict. There's no need for it. It's ridiculous in my perception. I have other things, and I think I've probably said enough for tonight, but I will not vote to suspend or drop the lawsuit because we're going to end up in another one anyway. Thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and say a lot of things. Like 50% of what you just talked about wasn't even on subject.
Say whatever you want. I don't care.
Well, I'm just saying, Katie, I think you want to go ahead and respond. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Basically, what I'm working on is the fact that the majority of the citizens in this Reading have spoken and they are against the lawsuit. They never mentioned anything about the children in their petition. I know people have spoken at council about that. And when you talk about following the rule of law, like I said, what I said earlier is that they did follow the proper steps to amend the PDD from what I'm finding. Now, again, I'm still waiting on information from people, but it does look like they try to do that. Just like, if somebody wants to build a 6-foot fence, those aren't allowed in the city. You have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals to get that variance. There's rules you follow to get changes made, and it appears that the school had tried to follow those from everything that I'm finding on their end. Again, still waiting on information from Dan Brooks, but it's not, I don't feel like they just threw those telephone poles in the ground. Now, again, I wasn't on council and involved in all that, but from what I'm seeing, it wasn't done without any kind of consideration. And yes, Carrie Furnace is no longer there, hasn't been there for a few years, and now Chuck is retired as well. But I'm not getting this impression from everything that I've been reading that they're just thumbing their nose at the city. So yeah, as far as following the rule of law, it looks like they have been doing just that to try to get changes made to the PDD. And now it boils down to the fact that the city is suing the school, and taxpayers, whether they're residents or property owners or business owners, are not happy with this. And that's the issue at hand.
First of all, they may have followed the methods of a variance, but what you don't understand, Mrs. Edichico, it was not granted. They didn't get a variance.
They did through the Planning Commission.
They did not get it voted through council. It had to pass. It did not pass. It was up to the administration to enforce the law. They failed to do that. That it came down to council, which shouldn't have been our responsibility at all. It was up to the school to do what they were supposed to do. The variance was not granted, and the administration failed to enforce that law. So it took this council to hire an attorney to say, enforce the law. What if another contractor, developer, we talked with Linda Fitzgerald tonight, didn't we? What if they came along and did a big PDD on a project? And then they come along and say, oh, we want to change this because we made a mistake. We spent money we shouldn't have. We want to do this variance. Where's the precedent going to be? You let the school do it. I deal with the law every day, and precedent is an important element. So they followed the rules and they lost.
I'll make one comment as well. 700 or 800 people on a petition is not the majority of the city. There's over 10,000 people in this city. And I think a lot of people, as Tony indicated, are sitting back just waiting for the next step to make a move. So, I don't agree with your majority of the city comments.
I just wonder, Katie, did you actually look at those names?
Yeah, I went through it.
Did you see any of them that were duplicates?
Not on my
A lot
end.
of
There
them.
was,
There were a lot of them. Did you see anybody that wasn't even living in Reading?
no, I
I
mean, I
just
didn't
wonder
look
how
up
much time you
addresses.
spent on looking at that, because that was presented to us by the same person that before the school levy was passed, presented information that the Hilltop property was going to return back to the city. That's the same person that put this petition out, and to me, it's very poorly written. There's hardly any addresses. There's some names are a scribble you can't make out. It would never be accepted now down at the Board of Elections. And the other thing is that Patrick at one time, first of all, the first meeting, council meeting, after the polls were delivered up there, we had a resident come and say, what are the polls doing there? Everything is supposed to be underground. So you're saying that the school has been, upfront and cooperative and so on and so forth. Well, 2 years after that, Patrick is sending them a letter saying that it's possible that you're not going to even be able to occupy that school unless you follow the rules. So I don't think they cooperated. There's many, many, many things we can talk about, with the erosion up there and what those people had to put up with, so on and so forth. You were not on council for 2 years. We've lived with this for 2 years or more, and it has not always been very pleasant, to say the least.
Any other comments? Mr. Lynn?
One comment. What I find interesting is the mayor's letter saying, I don't want to argue who's right and wrong. The school is obviously wrong, okay? Because they broke their PDD. They didn't pass the amendment, clear as day. They were wrong. The trick is now, where do we go from here? Okay, so their polls, on December 26th, when it came to the vote, I voted to let the amendment happen. But when it didn't, they need to follow the law. They need to follow the PDD. So, okay, so can we work with them to make sure that this happens? I don't know. The school worked with us. I understand that a tax abatement was given to Port Authority. Is there some way that we can work with the school and maybe saying, hey, what can we do to help you to get this, follow the original PDD and get this done? What kind of agreement between the city and the school can we make? That's something we need to look at and communicate. But I do believe the PDD needs to be followed. There's no who is right and wrong. The school was simply wrong, or they wouldn't have tried to make an amendment to begin with. So the trick is how do we move forward?
Okay, any other comments? Well, I think we had a couple items. Denny, you're going to send some things off to Ms. Edichico. I think some of the things that Tony mentioned, Mr. Gertz mentioned around getting solid costs of what it's going to be is a very good point. The 50,000 has been thrown around, but how that number came up, I don't think anyone knows. No one's really negotiated with some of the vendors like Cincinnati Bell that we're saying this is how much it's going to cost. So there's some opportunities here to improve the bid, the amount of money that we're looking at. I don't think that's really a city task, but maybe a cooperation between the school and the city would help that. So, but I think Tom's also right. We need to find out where we want to go with this, and see how we can make it all work. All right. So I think we're going to have to revisit this. This is not over. And we'll be looking for Ms. Edichico to get a little more information and talk with the school about possibly getting those quotes, I'd like to know the names of the people that Tony had, if he trusts them to give us a quote. If you can share that information, we'll certainly request a quote from them. Let's see if we can.
So the first thing they have to do, if you got a $53 million project, you don't hire an educator to run the project. So they first got to find somebody who can be a proper project manager. I don't think the total thing is finished up there. And I'm not trying to jump all over Chuck LaFata. He was I don't know if he's a Green Beret, but he was a Ranger in the service, and I have great respect for them. Mr. Lindeman and myself, and I'm trying to think who other here served in the armed forces, but I can't criticize somebody. But it took me a long time to become an attorney. I've been practicing 48 years. I hope to get good someday. But I don't know any dang on thing about being a project manager of a $53 million project. And I think spending that kind of money, $1,000 a month, and then the person retires, was like throwing money out the window. This should have never got to where it's at. If they'd have went ahead and put it underground from its inception and not spent somewhere between $38,000 and $40,000 and put it in temporaries, we wouldn't be here. And then all we get is the criticism as a councilman and a city official. I have an obligation and a sworn duty. And that's how I've looked at the city's money. That's why I like being the finance committee chairman. I look at the city's money as my money. I'm not going to recklessly throw it around. I'll vote for things that I think we need, and I'll vote for things we don't need. And I know I've been criticized, and I may be the only vote sometimes. But the ball is in their corner. They can solve the problem. If they already got $5,000 or $2,500, they're going to put towards getting someone to give a proper estimate to put it underground. Like somebody else said, I won't mention his name, just do what you're supposed to do and be done with it. I don't want to set this precedent of granting these variances. And then if one of their own graduates that works in the field, I thought it was interesting. I'm not going to mention his name. I don't think he wants us to. It was a very nice communication he made. And he said, I'll read his communication, the part that's important. The voltage is not just dangerous, it is deadly. Even the mayor said he likes poles and lines overhead. That isn't what the industry does, apparently, because this man that gave this statement on Facebook works in the industry. I mean, that's why where Randy lives is underground. That's where you're at. It's underground. Any new subdivision that's been in Reading that's been developed, all the electrical systems have generally been, not generally, that's how they part of the plan. Oh, I'm tired of it.
Well, the electricity's deadly in your own home too. So I'm not sure why that's something new.
Well, you talk to Chuck LaFata and he can get along really well. That's not your profession. That's this man's profession that I'm reading from. So I think you're a great whatever you do. I wouldn't trust you to tell me how to put in electrical installations. No offense, but that's not your forte, nor mine.
All right. Thank you very much for your committee report, Ms. Adichico. I think that was the end for today. I'm going to go to Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Fischescher.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll be voting tonight on the Arlington Heights contract to provide fire and EMS to that community for the next 5 years. As I mentioned before, the only difference between this contract and previous contracts are the dates and the annual cost, which equates to about a 10% increase per year. For police for the month of August, they had 1,481 calls for service, 23 auto accidents, 254 total charges filed, with 171 being original charges. For citations issued, 32 to Arlington Heights Mayor's Court, 6 to Hamilton County Court, 3 to Juvenile Court, and 130 to Reading's Mayor's Court, for a total of 174 citations. couple of highlights of their ongoing operations. They've gotten August 17th, they're investigating and it's ongoing of a sexual assault. August 18th, one of our officers observed a suspicious vehicle up and around Dottie Court that fit the description of a drug complaint vehicle. During the investigation, they found 2.5 pounds of marijuana in the car. August 19th, warrants were served against suspect for weapons and drugs investigation. They also seized $3,620 during the search. On August 21st, arrest was made for an ongoing investigation for breaking and entering. August 27th, they received 4 CODIS hits on DNA evidence from the shooting at the lounge in South Reading. They now know the suspects and they're looking for them. There's 4 total. 2 B&Es are being investigated, one on the 21st at Family Dollar and the other on the 29th at 8397 Reading Road. For the fire, for the month of August, they had 185 EMS incidents and 42 fire incidents for a total of 227 responses. There was a career firefighter paramedic written test given August 22nd, followed up by the physical agility testing, which was last weekend, August 29th and 30th. And finally, this Sunday starts Fire Prevention Week. Fire Prevention Week is observed each year during the week of October 9th in commemoration of the Great Chicago Fire, which began on October 8th, 1871, and caused devastating damage. This conflagration killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 structures. The theme for this year's fire prevention is serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Cooking is the leading cause of home fires and home fire injuries in the United States. Everyone is encouraged to be mindful of fire safety in the kitchen, including putting a lid on grease fires, never leaving a pot unattended. You should avoid wearing loose-fitting clothing while cooking, especially with a gas stove. And keep the young ones out of the kitchen while food is being prepared so that they don't either reach up and grab things or get underfoot and end up tripping whoever's cooking. And that is all I have for this. I will be bringing an ordinance at the next meeting for prepping out the 3 cruisers that are coming in sometime this month. That's all I have, Chris.
Any questions for Mr. Fishesher? Thank you, Mr. Fishesher. Service Chairman, Mr. Albrink.
The only thing that I would have for tonight is to encourage the administration to hire another mechanic for the service department. I think they're down 1 person from what they have had because of the things that have been going on. So I know it's tough, but nevertheless, it is something that is needed to keep our city running smoothly. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Albrink. Any questions? Recreation Chairman, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you very much. The pool officially closed this past Sunday. I think it was another great year for the Reading City Pool. We averaged 80 people a day at the pool, so I just wanted to thank all the staff at Reading City Pool for all the work they did, and I also want to thank all the residents for complying with all the COVID restrictions this year and just making a great year at the pool. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lynn. And last, we'll go back to Finance Chairman, Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I've probably spoken more than I need to tonight, but I have a whole list. There's 30 funds. I was going to go over some of those, but I don't think it's necessary. I think we've probably said enough tonight, so I'll pass on my committee. Thank you.
I do want to thank some of the council members who have already sent their discussions tonight to Carla for the minutes. And I think you're still looking for a couple from maybe one of the guest speakers and maybe even something from Patrick. So I want to thank everyone for that. Any new business that needs to be brought up and put into a committee? We will go to reports of officials then. You have something from Mr. Ross, Carla, that you can read? A report? I can read it if you want.
Well, he said not to read it because they're just bullet points. So he was going to elaborate.
Okay, we'll wait for Mr. Ross then next week when he can elaborate.
I can't hear that.
Law Director, Mr. Report.
Thanks, Chris. I don't have a report. I will let you know that the briefs have been filed on the pipeline case with the Supreme Court by the city of Blue Ash, Nope, and the city of Reading. Those are a record. We're waiting for the responses from the Duke Energy and the Ohio Power Siting Board. That's all I have.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Treasurer, Mr. Gertz.
Yeah, I just wanted to give everybody a brief update of August because my iPad's about ready to die. So if I lose you, I'll email you the report. For individual residents' income taxes, we collected $71,990. That was $1,500 more than we took in last August, which was good. Year to date, we're still down about $78,900. But that is a lot better than it was a couple of months ago. For business profits income taxes, we collected $80,398, which was about $30,000 more than we took in last August. So that was a positive move. But year to date, we're still running about $28,620 behind. So year to date, we've collected $81,921. For payroll withholding income taxes, we collected $519,086, which was right now we're sitting 0.5% ahead, or a little over 1,000 for payroll withholding income taxes. So that's definitely positive. Total tax we collected in August, $672,274. So that was $141,000 today. We've collected $5,245,172, and we're still running 7% behind, which equates to $88,154. But that's a far cry from where we were when it was about $570,000 behind. So in progress in terms of for the end of the year, I know we had a 3 to 5% budget increase estimate. I don't know if we'll get there, but I hope we are at least able to break even and get a little over what we did here. So that's all I've got in terms of tax collections for August month. Any questions?
Hey, Mel, when's the next, we're going to have another one of those phone conferences, or do you think we even need to bother?
Yeah, I haven't set one up yet. I can go ahead and set one up for, either this Friday. Let me look at
I'm not saying we need one. I just didn't know. I mean, I was pleased to hear today your thoughts that, the way things are going. Of course, we were projecting to take in about 4 to 5% more money. So to say we're 80-some thousand, pretty close, we're not really where we wanted to be back in last July. But nevertheless, I like what I'm hearing. I don't say that we have to. It doesn't appear that we have to borrow any money. That's the most important thing.
No, that is very important. You're exactly right.
Okay, looks like we made.
Literally, my iPad is about ready to die, so I'm gonna lose you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gertz. And Auditor, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Chris. Just to
welcome.
go off what Mel
Hold on,
said.
is there someone who wanted to say something? Carla? No? Okay. Ms. Smith, go ahead.
Okay, just to piggyback off of what Mel was just talking about, we have starting the month of September, and we've already done one payroll today. Between our general fund and our city earnings tax fund, we have about $1.5 million. That big carryover helps us through some of the slimmer months when we collect money, coming up, because collections are a little lower. This is definitely a bigger picture item from July and having heavy collection in July. And that kind of lasts us until the end of the year. So I'm sitting on the first of the month bills. There's quite a few of them that come in the first of the month, and I'm closing August, but we have about $1.5 million in our general fund kind of expenditures. So I just wanted to give that update. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any questions from anyone? Thank you. Reading of any resolutions? No resolutions. Looks like we have one ordinance to be read. It's a third reading. Will you go ahead and do that, Ms.?
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into an agreement with the Village of Arlington Heights, Ohio.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Mr. Fischescher to adopt the ordinance with the Village of Arlington Heights. Roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Tony.
Oh, Tony.
Uh-oh.
We'll
All right,
make it number 7. Go ahead.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
You're on mute, Don. I think you said yes.
Yes. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Sorry, I had to step out. We voting to suspend the rules. I vote yes.
To adopt.
Voted up,
We're-
yes.
It was a
Okay.
third reading, Tony. We didn't have any suspension.
I'm sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, I vote yes. I've read it over. I agree. Nice job, Randy.
Thank you.
Mr. Fischescher
Yes.
and Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
So that was unanimous. That ordinance will pass. And the ordinance number? Or is it
2020-35.
Well, thank you for a long evening. Is there any other business anyone wants to bring up?
Yeah, I'd like to go back.
Just
to
say one thing.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lindeman.
Everyone has probably not been into the office, so there's some paperwork in there that needs to be filled out and sent back in about ethics. So if you haven't received it, you might want to check your box in the office.
Okay, good point.
Thanks, Don.
Mr. Gertz?
Yeah, I just think we ought to go back to the council chambers. They're playing football and doing everything else. Why we can't get back? Like, then I don't have to worry about screwing up my computer.
Okay. Noted. Anything else? Then this meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much for the evening.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys.